Welcome to the one and only Tszyu.
G'day guys, how are we? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, September the 18th, 2023, and as always, great to be on. You've got to forgive me a little bit tonight. I'm a little bit under the weather. Well, not under the weather, just one of those nuisance head colds. So a little bit nasally, and forgive me if I've got to stop a couple of times for a cough or a drink of water or something there. So, as I said, guys, great to be along for this show. See, old mate Big J is already in the chat. Welcome, mate. You're always got something there for us. I'll go through all of those points there. See, Asbot there as well. How are you, mate? Plenty to talk about as well. We've obviously got Skye Nicholson on the weekend. I see you've got that in your comments there, Big J, so we'll get to that. Tragedy around that as well, wasn't there? That was really unfortunate. Also, last week, it seems like an eternity ago, but the Dylan Biggs, Ryan Mitchum card, we'll go over that as well. Of course, the Tszyu card, we'll go over that, and a few other bits and pieces. So, as always, this is your show. It's what it's advertised as an interactive show. I host, you guys come up with the topics, and as it says there, let's talk some boxing. So, Big J, let's get into it, mate. What do we got? Glenn, you're with me there, mate. Crookers, yeah, I'm not that bad. I don't know what it is, actually. I think what might have been was Friday night. I was at the MCG when the mighty Blue Boys got over the line by 2 points, and I yelled and screamed that much. I didn't have a voice at the end of it, and I woke up Saturday morning feeling, no voice, but splitting the headache, and I think it's just sort of rolled on from there. But I don't, if that's what caused it, I don't care, because the mighty Blues are into a preliminary final. It's going to be very, very, very tough against the mighty Brisbane Lions up at the Gabba. They haven't lost a game up there all year, the Brisbane Lions. But the great thing about preliminary finals, or finals in general, but especially preliminary finals, is that anything is possible, anything can happen, and this is just set up for the Blue Boys to knock Brisbane off in the preliminary final against the odds and take on, hopefully, what could be Collingwood in the grand final. If you're not from a AFL background, if you're from league, it's probably like, help me out here, guys, it's probably like the Broncos playing, I don't know who's their arch rival, but whatever it is, the two biggest rivals in the sport, in the code, that is Carlton and Collingwood, and there is a possibility that we could play each other. So I'm saying to the Collingwood supporters out there, bring it on if it gets that far. But I know we're up against it. I get it. I think Collingwood will get into the grand final. I think they'll beat GWS. However, how good would it be for footy to have Carlton and Collingwood in the grand final? But anyway, so it was a great night. It was awesome. I see the mighty Melbourne Storm got up. I didn't watch it. It was on the same night. But I did see that they had a thrilling win as well. So I'm on the Melbourne Storm, although I'm not right up with the league side of things. I know they've got Penrith, I think, this week. Going to be just probably as tough as Carlton going to the Gabba. But anyway, you've got to be in it to win it. All right, let's get on to some comments here, guys. Big J, what have we got there? So first of all, Skye Nicholson. So Nicholson more aggressive, good movement, but had a huge height and reach advantage. Yeah, she had about a foot on her, didn't she? Serena would end her easily, but as Yoda said, much to learn she still has. Still carries hands far too low like Roy Jones Jr. Yeah, look, I'm with you there, Big J. She gets away with it a lot because of her height, and she has really, like her or not, she's got really, really good skills. She tends to, because she's also got the height and reach, but she also gets right back on that back foot, and especially a fighter like Sabrina Perez, the one she beat for the WBC interim featherweight title, just so hard to get to her, and she does it so well. She keeps on the back foot, she pours out the jab, draws you onto it, and then she counters with that left hand or a right hook, and then she spins off to her right and does it so well. So, but yeah, look, I'm with you there, BJ. Look, I think someone like a Serrano, who really boxes, I think, more like a man rather than a woman. Women are a little bit more, I mean, they don't get me wrong, of course, the women have a crack and they're just as entertaining as the men, but they just fight a little bit differently. It's a little bit helter-skelter type of thing. Serrano sets you up, she hunts you down, and she can bang. So that would be tough. But look, I think Skye Nicholson is improving in every fight. I think she's being a very, very good fight. I think she will progress to maybe one of the full bouts. Depends on what Serrano does, of course. But I don't mind. I don't mind what she's doing at the moment, Skye Nicholson. And, and again, like her or not, you've got to give her 100% credit by going overseas continually and beating these fighters in their backyards most of the time. So congratulations to Skye Nicholson. I'm sure she'll go into bigger and better things. But I'm with you there too, Big J. The hands low, I don't like it. When you get someone that can close the gap like a Serrano and hurt you when they're inside, that spells a little bit of trouble. But at the moment, she's doing what she has to do. I don't like to, just on top of that about the hands, the fact that she's not a big puncher at all. I'm not sure she's actually had a stoppage yet. She's 8-0 with that belt now, but she's not a big banger, so I would think that maybe she's got to get a little bit tighter. But at the moment, can't fault her, mate. So we'll see what's going on there. All right, we've got another one from Big J. I'll just keep going through the comments as they come up. Big J, you got about 3 or 4 going there, but we'll see how we go. So, all right. So as usual, what's to discuss? Yes, Tszyu Mendoza on the Gold Coast. Yep, mixed feelings about that. Biggs versus Nikita penciled in for November. Yep, a much improved Skye Nicholson. Jai first defence coming out. Yep, yeah, we've just gone over Skye. We'll get to the Tszyu Mendoza card soon. We'll just go through a few more comments before we get to that, mate, and especially the Biggs Nikita Tszyu. Excuse me. That one just popped out. The Biggs and Nikita Tszyu card, because what do you think? First of all, the card itself, and then also Dylan Biggs' performance. I don't think you can really judge it too much. A couple of undercard fights on that, of course. Vegas Larfield upset. We had Cody Beacon and Joel Pavlidis fight as well. The Johan Lind Brandon Grutch fight was okay as well, but we'll get to that. I'll just go through a few comments and we'll come back to that. We'll keep going there. We'll come back to you there, a Big J. Bacon and eggs. Now, I'm not sure what to call you there, mate. Might call you B&E. Good day to you, mate. I'm not sure whether you've been on the show before and watching, but, mate, great to have you along. So any comments, topics you want to go over, make sure you put in there and we'll go over them. What's the remedy that you got there for me, mate? Take a spell. Hey, that's my motto as well, Big J. That's why I'm here. So I'm not a big fan of pumping myself full of medicine and all that sort of crap. I like to let the body heal itself, especially with something like this. It's just natural things that happen. So, hey, get out, get some sunshine, get some sleep, get some good food, plenty of water, and away you go. So I'm with you there, mate. But I haven't got the concrete handy, but I'm going to hang in there. All good. It's just one of those nuisance things. Bacon and eggs again. Go the Blues. 100%, mate. I heard that. And up Queensland. Okay, yep. That's I get you there. Hayden, Haradine, how are you, mate? Thanks for joining in the show. Glenn, Storm are lucky. Penrith will smash them. That's all you league supporters up there. The mighty Melbourne Storm. What is this thing against Melbourne Storm? I didn't actually see it, by the way, Glenn, so I'm not sure whether they were lucky or not. You could, look, what I will say about it, a lot of people said the same thing about the Melbourne-Carlton game on the weekend. Melbourne had a lot more scoring shots. They had their chances. Could have done this and would have done that. And if this didn't happen, that didn't happen, whatever. At the end of the day, in finals, doesn't matter about stats. Doesn't matter about if they did this or didn't do that. End of the day, who's in front on the scoreboard. Now, again, I didn't see the score there. But end of the day, Melbourne Storm finished in front, and that's all you can do. So, I don't sort of buy into the whole lucky sort of thing. Because, as I said, I had to sit through the whole weekend of everyone thinking up all these excuses about why Melbourne couldn't beat us. Hey, I was there, and Carlton just wanted it more, I can tell you. Took their chances and stuck it up Melbourne. So, if you're a Melbourne supporter, go and enjoy the snow. All right. Bacon and eggs, the winning try by the Storm was pretty good. I didn't say it, mate. I'm going to check it out now you've said that. What's this about here? Oh, Roosters and the Bunnies is an NRL equivalent of the Collingwood and Carlton game. Okay. So that's who we bet on the weekend, isn't it? The Roosters and the Bunnies are South Sydney. Okay. So they're the two biggest ones. All right. Beautiful. Well, if you're going to pick out the two biggest clubs in each league to play each other, Collingwood, Carlton, and so South. Now, again, it's not a football show. I think South Sydney were going pretty well all year from what I've seen and fell out at the end. Anyway, that happens. All right, let's keep the comments coming. James Daly, how are you, James? Should Jacob NG fight again? Jim told me he's training. Now, that's a really good point there, James, because haven't seen, obviously, a lot of him since the Billy Dib fight or anything of him since then. 100% he should fight again. He's a great young fighter. I'm assuming he's still pretty young. He's only, I think, in his early to mid-20s. I really, really like Jacob NG. Seen him in action a few times, and I don't think he should look, again, I don't know the circumstances about why he's been in the hiatus. Yeah, I mean, if it's a Billy Dib fight that would make you hang up the gloves, I don't know why. I mean, I thought he was winning the fight until he got disqualified. So, and obviously the rematch is not going to happen because Billy's obviously had his health problems. But yeah, Jacob NG, if you're watching, mate, put the gloves back on. Too much of a talent to not fight against Jacob NG. But if you know something that I don't, mate, let me know. But if that is the case in his training, then good stuff. Asbot, speaking of the ladies, any updates on Alicia Baumgardner drug results and the controversy issue? Real shame, that one. Now, that's a really good point, Asbot, because no, I haven't heard anything. I have been scouring the sites, and it's been unusually very, very quiet with that. Now, I know, was it the same thing as the Conor Ben thing? I don't know. But, look, she's a big star of the sport in female boxing or boxing in general. It's funny, isn't it? Is it just coincidence that she is a big name and she's the undisputed world champion, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we might just, not talk too much about it? I don't know. But no, Asbot, I have not heard anything, even though I've been looking out for it. But nothing so far. So it is a shame. If it is true, look, I'm a big one for innocent until proven guilty. But if she is guilty, then throw the book at her. She's just like anyone else. So, all right. St Kilda, 1, 2, 3. Do you have your Tszyu tickets yet? If so, where? Yeah, I do, St Kilda. Look, I was up in the air about actually going, but I've got some flight credits from 3 years ago that I have to use by the end of November, I think it is. So it ended up being good timing. So I'm going to take the family up there for the weekend. Not cheap, though, I will say. I haven't exactly bought ringside tickets, and I'm just happy to get a ticket anywhere, to be honest. So we're going to head up to the Gold Coast on the Friday night, which is the 13th, I think it is. Stay in Broadbeach, go to the fights, and then come home on the Sunday night. So, but yeah, I just got average tickets there, mate. I think it's that type of arena that no matter where you are, it's good seats. And I'll be honest with you, I don't normally subscribe to paying the type of money they're asking for these events. I just think it's too much. If you want to go corporate and all that, that's fine. But the tickets aren't exactly cheap. However, having said that, I totally get that expenses have to be paid. Mendoza's probably got his hand out for $1 million to come over. So I get it. I understand everything's got to be paid and everything costs money. But yeah, the prices were quite steep. And I think, Big J, you had a couple of points early about that. Yeah, I'm going to get back. I'll go to that now. All right, so that comment about the show. So, Big J, confused how No Limit didn't think that they could get a stadium for this fight. Yeah, I was surprised, mate. But I've been told No Limit go after the pay-per-views where the real money is made. The plan of smaller venue, more pay-per-view. Yeah, that's just business, and I don't mind it, Big J. Look, I'm not against this stadium, by the way. I would rather this model, to be honest. I understand they want the 30 or 40,000 people there, and it looks good. But we've spoken about it on this show numerous times. I would rather a small venue that's packed, and then have the pay-per-views that, like you said there, that's where the money comes from. So I got no dramas with it. As I said, I think it was last week with the George Kambosos and Devin Haney card at Marvel Stadium. Just totally lacked atmosphere. Totally lacked everything because there's 40,000 people there, but it's just a massive stadium. I don't mind it. The smaller venue. What do they get in there? 6,000 or 7,000 people. Maybe they could have gone fractionally higher. I mean, they could have gone to Sydney, but again, they would have got money from the Gold Coast Events Committee or whatever they are. And you're right there, mate. You hit it on the head. It's all about pay-per-views. $60. Now, they'll probably get, who knows, they might get, I'm just sort of picking a number, 50,000. I don't know. 50,000. What's that? $3 million right there. Get another gate of maybe another, what do they got there, 6,000 or 7,000. They might get another $1 million through the gate, just picking a number. There's 4 million, some sponsorship, and all of a sudden, everyone's making money. And and the atmosphere is great. So I haven't got a problem with that, Big J. But as I said, they would have probably got a really good site fee for putting the fight on the Gold Coast. So overall, the boys will probably make a couple of mil. Tim will probably make, I'm only guessing here, by the way, just purely guessing. Tim might make 1.5 to 2. Mendoza might make $1 million. Might cost another $500,000 for the rest of the card. And there's another $1 million to $2 million for the promoters. So, so that's the way I see it, mate. All right, let's go. We'll go through some more comments there. What do we got there? Zygmunt, how are you, mate? What do we got there? Hey, Lyndon, No Limits card last Wednesday. Didn't seem that good on paper, but I thought it was a really good night of fights. How did you score the Vegas Albert Nolan fight? Thanks for bringing that up, Zygmunt. Look, I'll stand here and just wipe the egg off my face just a little bit. Not entirely, but just a little bit. If you watched the last couple of weeks of shows, especially last week's show, I was very, I won't say critical, but very skeptical about this show. I didn't think it was Fox Sports worthy when you had the Wildfighter show, the Ace Boxing show, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I'll put my hand on my heart and say, yep, no drama. I'll admit I was wrong. However, semi-wrong. The first 3 fights were great. The Jackson Murray-Louis Masters fight was, I thought, average, and then, of course, the Dylan Biggs Ryan Mitchell fight was pretty much a waste of time. So, but as for the Vegas and Nolan fight, mate, I must admit, I thought Vegas Larfield got robbed. No, hang on. Not robbed. I thought he won. I'm a big proponent of just because you lost a close fight doesn't mean you're ripped off. But for me, I thought Vegas Larfield won. I thought he won it 5 rounds to 3. But look, a lot of the rounds were close. It depends how you score it. What were the actual scorecards? 77-75 times 2 and 78-74. So what's that? 6 rounds to 2 on one and 5 rounds to 3 on the other. Now, the other thing, even if you had it sort of even, Zygmunt, I would have thought that at the end, I think it was the end of the 4th round. I mean, the referee almost stopped the fight. If the bell hadn't gone, the referee was getting in there to stop the fight. And that's what I was counting down the last 5 seconds thinking, geez, he's got to do something here or the referee's going to stop it. And just as the bell went, the referee made his move, and you could sort of see him, he sort of pulled back. I thought he rocked Albert Nolan several times in the fight. However, and I'm sure I'm not sure whether Benny Harrington's watching this, but I'm sure would be all over this. The biggest criticism I had with Vegas Larfield, I think it was a matter of him losing the fight rather than Albert Nolan winning the fight. I thought when Vegas, the way he started early, when he purely used his skills and his range, his timing and his power, had Albert Nolan pretty much gone, on toast. But when Albert Nolan started to land a few, Vegas just got sucked into this slugfest. So for the rest of that fight, it was just, I'm just going to dig in and just keep fighting harder. When I think if he had just taken a deep breath, stepped back, regained his composure and got back to what he was doing in the first 3 rounds, I think he would have won that fight quite comfortably. But for some reason, I'm sure they're all scratching, especially Benny Harrington, scratching his head saying, mate, all you had to do was step back, get your composure, reset and go again, and we win this fight. But the more Albert Nolan started to fight back, the harder that Vegas bit down on his mouthpiece and just went with him, and he just didn't need to do it. And that's what drew him into Nolan's fight. Allowed Nolan to start counter-punching him, and that's what got him over the line, I thought. But I still think Vegas Larfield won the fight. I don't know what you guys think. I can see how some people would have thought Nolan was around the bouts, but when you've got a guy that gave him 6 out of the 8 rounds, I just don't get that. But, look, sometimes you need this sort of kick up the arse to get the momentum of your career going again. He's probably won most of his fights so far quite comfortably. Nolan's a tough competitor. He's got the same trainer as Wade Ryan, and it's a tough. You can tell it's a tough gym. And whenever you come up, and like a lot of those types of gyms, whenever you come up against their fighters, you know you're in a fight. You know they're going to be well prepared. You know they're going to be fit. You know they're going to be mentally ready to go. You know they're going to be tough and hard. And that's what Albert Nolan sort of struck me as. And that's, as I said, from the Wade Ryan gym. Wade Ryan always comes with that mindset. Limited skills, but you got to be on your game to beat him. And I get the same impression with Albert Nolan. So if I was in his corner with Benny Harrington for the next fight, for the rematch, and I'm sure it's going to happen, I'd be saying to Vegas, use your advantages, use your attributes, and beat this guy with everything you've got over him. Skill, power, everything basically he's got over Albert Nolan, but he just fought the wrong fight. Now, I'm not sure whether he wasn't listening to the corner, he just did his own thing, but I was surprised that, as I said before, the more that Nolan had success, Vegas, instead of getting his composure back, just bit down that mouth guard and just went even harder, which made it even easier for Nolan. So, excuse me, just my 2 cents. But I'm sure they've reviewed the fight. I'm sure they've seen what they did wrong. And I'm sure you'll see Vegas Larfield come back a better fighter. So, but to answer your question there, Zygmunt, I had it 5 rounds to 3 for Vegas Larfield. So... All right, Bacon and Eggs been subbed for about 6 months, give or take. Most of the time is kick back with a few beers and listen. Hey, mate, that's awesome. No drama. Even better to have you on the show, mate. That's good. And Carl steered me here. Well, he's a good man, he's Carl. I'm sure he's in there. Is he here? I haven't seen him in the chat yet, but I'm sure he'll be there somewhere. All right, Glennie's right. Penrith will dominate the Storm, which is shit because I want a Storm versus Warriors grand final. All right, now the Warriors are playing the Broncos, I assume. Going to be a big day for you Brisbane footy fans up there. I think the Brisbane-Carlton game is at 5:15 on the Saturday, and then the Broncos and Warriors follow that. So massive day. I don't know why they put them straight after each other, so you can't go to both games. But anyway, we're not talking footy tonight. Unless you want to talk about how great Carlton was last week, then we're going to put it on the back burner. All right. Steve Bateman, how are you, mate? Thanks for joining in the show, mate. Jules H is here. How are you, mate? Evening all. Great point, Lynden. Main event aside, Tszyu card leaves a bit to be desired, given the price. Yeah, and look, I got the email. I'm on the mailing list, like I'm sure a lot of you guys are out there, and I got the email and about the corporate stuff because in the past I have gone to a few corporate things, and I thought, wow. I think the main one was $3,500. Now, first or second row seat, so you can't get any better than that in the food and beverage package before the show. I'm not sure whether it continues right during the fight or after. Shit, but $3,500. It's a lot of money. So, as I said before, I have been to the stadium before, and it's just a really good rounded on top of the... So, I've just got sort of tickets up in the stands because they're all just great tickets. But yeah, it's for the card. We'll go over the card soon, Jules. I want to get your opinion on it. Everyone out there, what you guys think. I'm not really feeling it yet. Now, I'm not going to jump the gun because I'd said it last week with the Dylan Biggs card. But so far, I'm just not feeling it. I would have loved to have seen Isaac Hardman on there. I don't know why they've got the Russian on there, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon anyway. But thanks for the question there, or the comment there, mate. Bacon and eggs. All right, still on the NRL. What do we got? I don't understand the NRL tag with an international team in the competition. Yeah, good point. Good point. I understand. You must be a Aussie rules fan, are you? Bacon and eggs, and hopefully you're. I think you put the one up about Carlton before. So, yeah. Well, I'm with you there, mate. It's probably it's a bit like when the NFL in America they win and call themselves world champions. Or they have their domestic league. Actually, it's not the domestic league, it's with the baseball. Because I think the Toronto is it not the Raptors or the basketball? The Toronto Blue Jays are in there, so it's sort of international. One Canadian team or 2 Canadian teams, whatever the hell it is, but they call it the World Series. So yeah, but the NFL one always makes me laugh that we're world champions. We're the only ones in the sport that in the world that play our sport, but we're world champions. That's like, if Carlton win the premiership this year, we are world champions at AFL. Doesn't make sense. But yeah, I'm with you there, mate. It's just probably easy to keep it in NRL, I suppose. All right. Jules would pay the money if Big J versus Jay. That's Jai McAllister, isn't it? Could sneak on the undercard. He's been, I think he's been putting in a bit of work, hasn't he, lately, Jules? I follow him on Instagram, and he's having a bit of a crack, the young fella, Jai McAllister. So, yeah, all the best to him. Batman's here. How are you, mate? Salute, fellas. Thanks for joining in the show, mate. Always good to have you along. Big J, Jules. Speaking of the chump, Jai McAllister, he said I couldn't land one on him. I told him that the wind from one of my punches would give him ammonia poisoning and he'd get hospitalised anyway. Bring it on. I don't know what is with you social media guys, mate, at each other. I just do my own thing and don't get too involved with anyone else. Maybe either you and Jai got to get it on somewhere or just shake hands and agree to disagree. Asbot, what's the idea behind Tim training in the US for his Mendoza fight here? It's better sparring over there. Yeah, it is, mate. Yeah. It's just, look, we've got some excellent fighters here in Australia, but there's really no one in Australia that could probably test Tim as far as, sparring with here, like our guys. And I suppose you could say they could probably it would be cheaper to bring people in from overseas from the spar, but I think, and I don't blame you for it, Tim likes the idea of getting out of Australia, no distractions, and going to the hub or home of world boxing, and that is in Las Vegas. If you haven't been over there, you just get around to the gyms. It's a different feel. It's a way of life over there. I've been to a lot of gyms over there, and some of the guys are there pretty much all day. They just live there. They get there early. It's a bit of a family type of thing. Not to say that it's not like that here, but you've just probably got to get over there and experience it. And it's the culture. It's a really different culture over there. And again, I can't really explain it, but I've got no doubt that Tim, one, is to get away from the distractions over here, but just two, to be amongst it. I mean, geez, just me being over there and just being at the gym and watching people train, watching people spar, talking to the fighters, talking to the trainers, talking to social media people. I mean, it's just, you've got to be there to see it. So I have I'm not surprised at all that's what Tim wants to do, and it's mindset as well. It's elite boxing. It is the home of boxing over there, and Tim just wants to be part of it. Probably puts him in a better mindset. And not to mention over there, it's rough and it's tough, especially if you're a foreigner going into the gyms over there. If you spar, you better be ready to go because Mayweather's gym's got the doghouse. Pretty much every gym is like that over there. You go there, and as I said, especially if you're a foreigner and a fighter of the caliber of Tim, every fight is a war, and you come out of there very, very battle hardened. So, quick story. I remember we went to the Wildcard gym in 2015. Went over there with the Maloney twins, and Jade Mitchell came. There's about 12 of us went over. It was a great trip. I've probably spoken a few times about it on here. And we went over another fighter from their stable named Paul Watson. Great guy, Paulie. Just, I suppose you'd term him as a club fighter, journeyman, whatever you want to do, but a great guy and tough as nails. We went to the wild card, and the boys were all sparring there. That's when Jade was sparring Miguel Cotto, and the Maloney boys were sparring Lomachenko. That was at Garcia's gym, but we went to the wild card. It was upstairs gym, so not the downstairs gym. You only get to go to the downstairs gym if you're Tim Tszyu's caliber. But Paul had to spar in the upstairs ring, and he sparred another guy, similar type of standard. Excuse me. And it was on, and the two of them beat the shit out of each other, and the whole gym stopped. There's probably 60, 70, 80 people in this gym, all training and hanging around, and the gym stopped. Everyone watched it. There was yelling, there was cheering. It was like being at the fights, and it was like a dog fight. That's what it was like. And they beat the shit out of each other for how many rounds, and the end of it, I mean, there was blood and shit going on. I remember Brian Butler, his trainer at the time, after he got in there, and he's got the fist ups. It was like being at the fights. It really was. And they just went at it for 7 or 8 rounds, whatever it was. And the whole gym applauded and cheered and yelled. It was crazy. So that's what it's like over there. You go over there, you better be prepared to get in the trenches. But so if you ever get a chance, if you ever, any of you guys, I'm sure a lot of you have, but if you get over there and go to the fights, make sure you get to some of the gyms first. Get there a few days early. Get to the gyms. It's just as good as an experience of going to the actual fights. It really is. All right, Big J. Better sparring partners for Tim in the USA. Yep. The real reason is to be there at the Canelo-Charlo fight. Yeah, well, that's another really good reason there. Big J, I didn't think of that. Yeah, he'll be there, which is, 2 weeks away? I would have loved to have gone, but grand final weekend. Geez, what were they doing putting it on grand final weekend? Or AFL grand final weekend. And I think, so the Sunday, the day after the AFL grand final, is the Canelo-Charlo fight, and I think Jai Patai is earlier that morning as well. And I'm assuming the league final is the week after. Is it the week before or a week after? I think it's the week after on the Sunday night. So big week for us sporting fans. Asbot says Harbin on the Zoo card would have been epic. I don't know why they didn't put him on there, Asbot. I did see a couple of weeks ago, he said he was having a pretty quick turnaround. I just assumed he would have been on this card. And I can't remember who asked last week, and they said, who do you think should be on the undercard? I thought Isaac Hardman was a shoo-in. It was a certainty. But looking at that card, again, we'll go through it soon. I'm just not feeling it. But I'm sure as fight week gets closer, the momentum builds, the build-up starts, then maybe it might be a little bit different. But just a quick look at the card. I'm just, with so many really good fighters in that stable, I just thought they might have been able to maybe conjure up something a little bit better. But anyway, that's just me. Mutsy, what do you got there, mate? Inoue versus Tapales. I haven't seen much of Tapales, but if Inoue wins, can he go up another weight? That fight is, I've seen and heard, Mutsy, that it's any old day that'll be announced, unless it has in the last couple of days. I think we spoke about it. I'll put it on here on Friday, I think, with the weekly roundup. So I think it's going to be the first week of December in Japan. Don't underestimate Tapales as far as his heart, his strength, his durability. But geez, I can't see anyone beating Inoue. However, if he does go up past featherweight, anything's possible. I've said here before, you put enough weight on a train and it's going to stop. And in a way, I mean, I think he's only a natural best case to bantamweight. I think, if you ask me, I think he's gone up the last couple of divisions just to get more fights. So if he does go to super featherweight, you've got someone, whether it's Navarrete or Valdez or one of these guys, that are big, strong guys, especially Navarrete. That's a tough fight even for Inoue. But for this particular one, I think what would happen or will happen is Tapales, it might be a little bit like the second on air fight. Game, plenty of heart, has a crack, but just totally overmatched, overwhelmed, and maybe get stopped in the later rounds by the referee. But I can't see him getting stopped early, I will say. Mutsy, I think he's a 2-time world champion from the Philippines. Obviously, they breed him tough there. I think that's a good fight. It's a tough fight for Inoue, and it might be a little bit tougher than what a lot of people think. But as far as going up to super featherweight, I think that would all depend on who he fights. Look, at the end of the day, you've got someone like Manny Pacquiao, went from super flyweight right up to super welterweight. So, but yeah, we'll see anyway, mate. But I think he can. But it depends on who he comes up against. Batman, in a way, will complete. Or he disagrees with me. Absolutely smoked Tapales, and then he won at 126. I think he wins, Batman. Excuse me. As I said, I think he wins, but I don't think it'll be as easy, maybe, as getting smoked. But I think 126 for me is Inoue's peak. However, I just think he'll keep testing himself until he can't test himself anymore. And I hate to say it for all you Inoue fans out there, somewhere, sometime, against someone, he will get beaten. It will happen. It just will. And it'll most likely be against someone that we just don't expect. It just, if you're a boxing fan through history, I remember Chavez, I think it was at 87 straight, and he comes up against Frankie Randall, who was not supposed to beat him. And he did. I remember Hector Camacho, no one could get near him. Greg Haugen out of nowhere beat him. I'm just sort of, obviously there's Buster Douglas and Tyson. So many different things happen. But it'll come when it's probably least expected. But at the moment, Batman, he's just he's a freak, isn't he? James, all right. Many Russian boxers are coming to Australia and taking out citizenship. Yep, I think Mike Altamura from Platinum's got a couple as well. One of them is Alexander Deviatov, 15-0, and Yusef Dib, 20-0. Let's get this all Aussie fight. Okay, when's that fight? I looked at BoxRec the other day. Have I missed that one? It'll come up anyway. But, yeah, the Russian thing, well, because I can't remember his name, but Mike Altamura's got a really good one. He fought on the Tszyu Harrison card. Was it Harrison? Yes, the Harrison card. And he was just an animal, that guy. So, yeah, look, if they can come out here, get a better life, get some good fights, make some good money, then why not? I don't know why they've got this Sergey Vorobev on this card, though. James, if you can enlighten me, let me know. He's the one on the No Limit card fighting Wade Ryan. I just don't get it. So, let's have a quick drink there, guys. All right, Big J. NRL Grand Final, October 1st. Sunday night, 7:30 kickoff. So that's the day after the AFL Grand Final. Is that the way it normally is? Okay. Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Well, that's a big weekend for footy fans. Probably the one league game I watch all year. Well, I watch maybe a half or half of a half, something like that. Anyway. And I agree, Big J. Inoue is the new Pacquiao. Yeah. Well. Yeah. At the moment, definitely 100%, mate. So, but we'll see. All right. Okay. What do we got? Jules says, good point, James. We mentioned it a few weeks back, but the Russian on the Tszyu card was previously ranked number 2 light middleweight in Australia. Oh, is that this guy, is it? Okay. How was he ranked the number 2 light middleweight in Australia when he hasn't fought in Australia? We're going to bring, this is Sergey Vorobev. Now, it says here, and I'll actually bring you guys into this so you can see what's going on. So it says here, his nationality is Australian, even though he was born in Russia and he's never fought in Australia. So how does that work? How can you get ranked in Australia? Not yet. Well, maybe this is the first step towards it, maybe. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that one. Excuse me. All right. Yeah, I don't sort of get that one, Jules. But yeah, I mean, it does make sense for more Russians to come out here. But being ranked number 2 light middle in Australia, I remember seeing that on there, and I think some of you guys might have brought it up about why or who is this guy. But the fact that he says his nationality is Australian, but he was born in Russia and has never fought in Australia, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, so with, hang on, what do we got there? James. Vorobev is inactive and might be based at the Tszyu gym, maybe, not sure. Well, he hasn't fought. By the time he fights, well, actually it is September the 4th, so he hasn't fought in a year. So yeah, he is inactive. But yeah, I don't, unless look, he signed with No Limit and they want to get behind him. But I'm not quite sure why No Limit would need or have any need whatsoever to get behind a Russian fighter and have him based and fighting out of Australia. Yeah, I'm not sure what. I'm sure there's obviously a very good reason. I'm sure someone will work it out eventually. But yeah, I don't understand that. Jules says the Russian on the upcoming Tszyu card. Oh yeah, not the Tszyu Harrison card. Yep. Okay. Well, let's get into that card. So you got Tszyu, Brian Mendoza, of course. Well, actually, we'll go over it there. I'll bring you guys into it so you can see on my webcam. All right. So you got. Hang on, where are we? All right, so there it is there. So Tszyu, hang on, I'll bring it down so you can see over my buffhead. All right, so you got Tszyu, 23-0, Brian Mendoza, 22-2 for the WBO Super Welterweight title. Well, we don't really need to give that any introduction, do we? We all know what's going on there. That should be a really, really great fight. I think Brian Mendoza tests Tim in maybe a little bit of a different way than he's been tested in the past, and maybe it's by power, maybe it's by awkwardness, maybe it's by something else. But I think he'll give Tim a test in, as I said, in an area that maybe he hasn't been tested before. On the undercard, Sam Goodman, 15-0, Miguel Flores is 25-4-1. So let's have a look at his record there. So you can see there his last fight was a draw against Abdamare. So it's pretty good form, although it was a year ago. Before that, the win over, what's his name? Dual Ogian, 15-17-4, so nothing to write home about there. Then he had a couple of losses. He was stopped by Eduardo Ramirez in the 5th round. That was at A&T. Okay, what card was that on? That must have been on a big event. Let's have a look. So that was on Errol Spence, Danny Garcia. Okay. Sebastian Fondora, Habib Ahmed. Yep, so pretty good card there. Before that, Leo Santa Cruz. So yeah, so that was for the world title. So no slouch. Probably a really good opponent for Sam Goodman, I think. Not a bad one at all. So good on No Limit for that one. All right. So James says about the Russian. All Vorobev's rankings recently disappeared. Yeah. Well, obviously, I think if you're inactive for a year, unless you're a Charlo, if you're inactive for a year, then you're out of the rankings. All right, so the rest of the card, I'll get to you in a minute as bot. So the rest of the card there, so you can see Sergey Vorobev, 19-1 against Wade Ryan, 21-11. Now, I've had a little bit of a look at this Vorobev on YouTube. I'm not overly impressed, I've got to say. Maybe, again, they know something that I don't. But if it's getting behind him because you think he's going to be some sort of, world champion or whatever, I don't see it. I'm sorry. I don't see Vorobev being... I think Wade Ryan's a really good chance of beating him. Might just be me. Check him out if you get a chance. But, yeah, I watched a couple of highlights from his fights and a few rounds from some of his fights, and just an average fighter, I thought. So there's got to be some other reason behind it. Got to be a reason why No Limit have brought him to Australia and put him on this card, especially when you've got Isaac Harmon waiting in the wings that they could have brought in to take his spot. Would have been a lot better. But anyway, but I think Wade Ryan, look, on paper, is a really good opponent for Vorobev. If you're looking to showcase him, Wade Ryan's a good, tough, solid guy, but not overly, great in the skills department. So maybe they're looking at Wade Ryan is just giving Vorobev some rounds and make him look okay. But as I said, I think Wade Ryan's a live chance in that fight. So one fight on here that is a really good fight, though, is this one here, Nathaniel May, Jackson John England. The only one reason I've got a little bit, or a couple of worries, is because Nathaniel May has been very inactive the last few years. You can see there, last fought in May last year against a guy that was 37-31, and he had 2 rounds. Before that, he had the 2 losses. That was 4 years ago. 2 back-to-back losses against Bruno Tarimo and James Dickens. So not overly great form. You can see there Jackson John England. His form's actually been okay. He's got the 2 losses, 14-2. But just see he obviously lost to Paul Fleming there, which was a great fight. Come back with a win over Shiva Mishra. He's no slouch. Good tune-up fight for him. And that was only a couple of months ago. So I think you almost have to favour Jackson John England in that fight to get it done. But if Nathaniel May, who's such a great talent, if he can get anywhere near where he was 5 years ago, he could be anything. The only problem I've got with him is it too late? Whether the heart's still in it, whether he's got enough in the tank, whether inactivity. But that's a tough fight. So the rest of the card there, Hassan Hamdan against Danvers Kushieri. Don't know anything really about Danvers Kushieri. Hassan Hamdan's obviously a good kid, trained by Jeff Phoenix. That'll be a good fight for him. Chanel Dargan, Amber Amelia. Now, this will be one of the fights of the night, I guarantee it. Chanel Dargan doesn't, like in all the fights, she's had 2 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws. Just does not stop throwing bombs. And Amber Amelia, probably more the technical side of things. That's going to be a really, really good fight. So out of all those, apart from the main event, I'm probably more looking forward to the girls' fight, Nathaniel May and Jackson John England, to be honest with you. I'm sure the Sam Goodman-Flores fight will be a good technical fight. Not so exciting, the Vorobov-Ryan fight, but we'll see. All right, a couple more comments there. All right, so Asbot, go back to me on the screen there. All right. Anyone else here about Damien Hooper? Aussie light heavyweight, fought on the undercard at Pack versus Horn. had delusional breakdown, beat some dude to a pulp and stole his car in the news last week. No, I didn't know that. I really hope that's wrong, to be honest. Well, let's just quickly Google him while we're doing that, because I hope that's wrong. I really do. Such a great talent. I know he's had some issues outside the ring, but he is a very, very good fighter. All right, that was back in February. He has had a bit of a mental health problems issue over the journey, mate. So doesn't really say anything there on Google at the moment, mate. But I don't know. I really don't know. I hope he gets the help that he needs, because as I said, he's such a great talent. I think his career's over now. He's done some jail time as well, I think, but just could have been anything. He really could have, and that's boxing for you, mate. I know the other one. I saw a comment online on the weekend about Willis Mean. I also wondered what happened to him. Someone asked about that, and I think he's got himself in a bit of hot water outside the ring as well. So it's a shame, but that's the boxing game for you, I suppose. Zingmont says, as I just try and unblur myself there. No, just made myself worse. Hang on, what do we got there? Back a bit there. All right. I'll come good eventually, guys. It's always something, isn't it? It's the microphone, it's the camera. All right, good to see the return of Nathaniel May. Should be a good fight with Jackson. Yeah, it will be, mate. I don't know what's going on there. Yep, there we go. All right. Apologies if you're listening to this on Spotify after the fact, by the way. You're probably thinking, what is he doing? He's coughing, drinking, not saying anything, whatever. So, it's good to see him back, mate. I did have a chat with Mike Altamura a couple of weeks ago about this, and he's pretty adamant that he wants to have another crack at it. So let's hope that is the case. And but Jackson John England, very, very good young fighter. Again, always comes to fight. That should be a ripper. All right, Mutsy. Wade Ryan is a battle axe. Hope he gets the win. Yeah, well, as I said, mate, he always comes to fight. No matter what, he always comes to fight. Like his record, 21-11, but he's fought all the best guys out there. Let's have a look at his record while we're going, as we were saying that. So he's fought Colin Mazudia, Dennis Hogan twice. He's fought Colin Mazudia, beaten him as well. Daniel Lewis, Emmanuel Carlos, Les Sherrington, Michael Zarafa, Tim Tszyu, of course, just to name a few. So he's been in there with a lot of good fighters. So, look, as I said, he's not the most talented guy, but you don't have to be the most talented fighter in professional boxing, because it's a different sport. Amateur boxing is a little bit different. You've only got the 3 rounds to get the job done, so normally the most skillful fighter wins. In the pros, a lot more comes into it than just talent, and he's one of those fighters. So, I'm with you there, mate. Hope he gets the win. And it's a risky fight. If they're looking for Vorobev to look good in this is not the type of guy you want in the fight, I don't think. James Daly, Iman Kataev, yes, 3-0, 3 KOs, looks like a monster at 175. Yeah, well, how good would a fight with him and maybe Paulo Acuso be down the track? From what I saw when he fought on the No Limit card earlier in the year, there's no way I'll be wanting to get in the ring with him anyway. So, and I think this is a guy that Mike Altamura manages. So, he's a monster, mate, for sure. What do we know about Kushieri? Disappointed we didn't get the Hamden Frost rematch. I'm with you, mate. And these are the little complexities that have sort of come up on this card. Now, wouldn't you think it would have been a no-brainer to make Hassan Hamden and Justin Frost rematch? Now, it might have cost an extra $2-3 grand per fighter to make the fight. Big deal. I mean, when you're making this amount of money and this amount of turnover has been generated with this event, what's $5 grand between friends? I would have thought they would have had that one. As I said, I like the girl. The other one on that card, by the way, is Tszyu Vasuatu. Hasn't got an opponent yet. The heavyweight lost to Tiki. Was it Tiki? What's his name? The one Tiki or Hiki, whatever his name was. He's back as well. But, I don't know. I don't know. They've obviously got the reason behind doing it, but a little bit of a head scratcher for this one. And look, end of the day, what I will say, we're all tuning in to see Tim Tszyu, Brian Mendoza. Does it really matter who they put on the undercard? You see it more and more with the events these days, these big fights. The undercards can be a little bit ho-hum because they all know whether it's Canelo or when it was Mayweather and Pacquiao and You know, all these fighters, they know we're going to tune in and buy the fight. So why do they have to stack the card? This is not UFC where they've got to have a stacked card to sell the whole event. Ours is about the main event. The UFC is about the event itself. Boxing's about the main event. So I just miss the days where we'd have 2 or 3 world title fights on the undercard. So you're lucky these days if you might get one. So anyway. Cole Champion, hi mate. Hi Lyndon Wise, good fighting guy that isn't even ranked. I think it's just strictly tune up at this stage, Kyle. He's a half decent fighter. Went through his record before. He's fought some really good fighters on there, but I think it's just not to take any risk. There's obviously a plan to fight for the world title probably early to mid next year. So they want a good solid guy who looks good on paper, might even improve Sam's rating, which probably will. He's got a good record, as we said. So that's probably why. And he's probably not ranked because of inactivity, I'd say too, Kyle. That's probably why. But I don't mind the fight. I haven't seen a lot of him. I watched a few highlights on YouTube today. Yeah, he's got some skills. I think Sam Goodman wins that fight. And, of course, No Limit want that. That's why they match him up against these types of guys. Good, tough, durable, good resume. But I think Sam Goodman wins that one and improves his rating. And that's why. But as far as not being ranked, it's probably got to do with, as I said, Cole, not fighting for over a year, I would say. Have you seen Skye Nicholson fight? Yes. I saw her fight on the weekend. As I said earlier, mate, got all the tools to win a world title. It's up to her, I suppose. So, but again, depends on who she fights. Some of those girls are pretty tough girls, and she's going to need to sit down a bit more in her punches, I think, if she's going to go on to bigger and better things. Well, a few more comments are coming through there, guys. Let's look at last Wednesday's show. So the Dylan Biggs, Ryan Mitchum fight. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up. Johan Lind, he was the ex-Olympian. He was 1-0. He's now 1-1. Lost a 4-round decision to Brandon Garrett. So he was making his debut. So scorecards were 39-37 times 2, 38-38. I thought Lind started really well, but just didn't really go on with it. Grush sort of took him around probably, probably a few nerves, but his pro debut. Little bit sort of uneasy, and I thought Lind looked really good. Then Grush sort of found his niche, and I thought, did more than enough to win that fight. So a good one there for that one. The other one was Cody Beacon, Joel Pavlidis. What a fight that was. So the scorecards there were 59-55 times 2 and 58-55 times 1. Yeah, I would probably say the second card was probably more like it. I don't think Pavlidis. Oh, sorry, did I say Beacon beat Pavlidis? The other way around. So Pavlidis, I thought would have won it 4 rounds to 2 to win it. Was it 5-1? I think they were stretching a little bit, but they were all close rounds. I think they'll probably run that one back as well. Pavlidis, he's tough. I thought Beacon was probably a little bit more naturally talented than Pavlidis, had a bit more skill. But I thought Pavlidis, again, just went for it and got the win. So a really good effort from Pavlidis, I thought. They'll no doubt fight again down the track. I'm pretty sure there's already been a bit of banter back and forth between those two. And we've already spoken about Vegas Larfield and Albert Nolan. Yeah, so as I said before, 78-74 and 77-75 times 2. So I'm still scratching my head that a judge could give Albert Nolan 6 rounds out of the 8, but maybe I've got to watch it again. So that was the 8-rounder. The Jackson Murray, Louis Masters fight, I was actually pretty critical of that fight. Again, I'll happily take that on board that Louis Masters did a really, really good job in that fight. The scores there, 58-55 times 2, 57-56 on the other one. Dropped Jackson Murray. My advice to Jackson Murray, because I know he's been looking at some big fights, some other heavyweights out there. Excuse me. I think my advice to Jackson Murray would be to maybe get another 4 or 5 fights on your belt before you look at fighting anyone that's remotely at the elite level, I would think. So he's had, 5 fights now? Because I thought he was exposed. I thought it was a very average performance from Jackson Murray. He needs to improve a lot. I'm just not quite sure what to make of him. He's not a big hitter. Louis Masters, I know he's awkward because he's so short. The majority of guys that Jackson Murray is going to fight aren't going to be the same dimensions as Louis Masters, who's a blown-up cruiserweight. just me, I wasn't overly impressed with Jackson Murray, and I think he's got a long, long way to go before we can sort of take him seriously. Nowhere near the upper echelon of Australian heavyweights, I would have thought. And then the main event, Dylan Biggs, Ryan Mitchell. Well, as I said before, how do you judge the fight? Dylan Biggs, was he 11-0 now? Ryan Mitchell 3-7. I see he might have went to 10-0. And Ryan Mitchell 3-7. Look, I get it. We spoke about it on the show last week. I understand. This was purely about showcasing Dylan Biggs to get him in front, of a well, not a live audience because there was probably about 100 people there, but the TV audience. So I get it, and a lot of people talking about Dylan Biggs now, and it's good. I'm still not convinced about it, and if you want to ask me even already what I think about him fighting Nikita Tszyu, I still think Nikita Tszyu wins that fight very, very comfortably. I know a lot of you out there will disagree. I've seen the comments on social media saying that Dylan Biggs will give Nikita Tszyu a real run for his money and possibly beat Nikita Tszyu. I'm sorry, I don't see it that way. Look, what I will say about Dylan Biggs, very, very, very impressed. Not just inside the ring, but outside the ring. Didn't see a lot in the ring, of course. He just did what he had to do. He blew him out of there. Not sure what Ryan Mitchell was doing. He got hit with some okay shots, but he went down like he'd been shot 3 times. And I thought they were okay shots, all punches, but, geez, it didn't take much to put him down. He looked big and strong and tough, but, it didn't really take much to put him down, did it? However, I wasn't in there, so what do I know? But, so, for Dylan Biggs, I thought he did a really, really good job of doing exactly what he was supposed to do. Got him out of there, looked impressive, got everyone talking about him, and that's great. But more so outside the ring, I was really impressed with the way he spoke, especially when the commentators, and that's another story itself. Come on, guys, surely we can do better than who we've got. But anyway, that's different. And we'll also, Harry, mate, the earring. Anyway, what are you doing? It's a free world, though. Do what you want. But the earring? Come on, mate. The other guy who does the special comments, I can't remember his name, mate. Come on, get Barry Michael on there, will you? Barry Michael's the best there, or Jeff Fennick. I think Jeff Fennick was there, wasn't he? He might have been in the corner. But, get Barry Michael or someone there. I don't know who that other peanut is, but you're a journalist, mate. Get someone that knows what they're talking about. Get Jeff Horn there or someone. Anyway, that's a different story. But I was really impressed with Dylan Biggs outside the ring with what he had to say. Spoke very well. The commentators tried to sort of light the fire a little bit about trying to get a little bit of trash talk with Nikita Tszyu. They tried to bring up the sparring that we've all heard about, and I have heard that myself, that he apparently dropped Nikita Tszyu in sparring. I went over that last week, but I really like the fact that he was the first one to say sparring, fighting is fighting. And I really like that about Dylan. I know what they wanted him to say. They wanted to say, he got it then, he's going to get it worse when I fight him. I know that's what they wanted. And they tried a few times to sort of prod him a little bit, but I was really impressed with the way he went about it. And seems like a really, really good young guy. So just because I think Nikita Tszyu beats him doesn't mean I'm not going to be a fan of his. I think he's a good young kid. I think he'll actually go on to do some half-decent things in the sport, no problem. But I just think, as I always say, there's levels in it. I just think Nikita Tszyu, if he can sharpen up a little bit, work on or tweak a few of the things that almost brought him undone in his last fight, I think he beats Dylan Biggs quite comfortably. And I think you will see him. He seems to be the type of fighter, Nikita, that needs that sort of fighter in front of him to really excel. And I think Dylan Biggs, you got to remember Jack Brubaker. I think Dylan Biggs might be a little bit more naturally talented than Jack Brubaker, but Jack Brubaker's so seasoned, so tough, so hard, but in so many really good tough fights with a lot of good fighters. Different kettle of fish than fighting a 21-year-old kid basically who hasn't really been tested yet. And I just think I can see Nikita really lifting to the the standard required and really doing a job on Dylan Biggs. So just my opinion. So we'll see. All right, a couple of comments there. I think all right, we'll go back a couple. Kyle, any movement on who Paulo Alcuso's next opponent is? Yes, it is. Has been finalised there, mate. Where is it? Where is it? I saw it on BoxRec the other day. I'll go back a bit there. There it is. So I'll bring it up for you there, Kyle. So he's fighting Gabriel Omar Diaz is his opponent. So you can see, so that's in Townsville at the Entertainment Centre there. So you can see they're 14-5. So he's lost a couple of recent fights, a couple last year. So hasn't really fought anyone of note. But look, same thing. I've got no dramas with it. They're wanting to make Paulo Alcuso look good. He's the main event. He's the recently signed fighter. So, I get it. They want a tough, durable fighter who can give Paulo rounds. But, he's not coming out, I would have thought, to beat Paulo Alcuso. But special talent, Paulo Alcuso. I still can't get my head around him leaving No Limit. I can't understand it, but his team obviously know a lot more than what we all do, and they've done it for a reason. So, but yeah, it did seem a little bit odd for me. But that's him there, mate. Gabriel Omar Diaz on the undercard. Davita Pengai Jr. against Frank Amato. His brother Austin hasn't been updated yet. TBA and Jermaine Pengai against TBA. So what is that? Only 3 weeks away. So yeah, you would have thought they would have that sort of more updated, that one. But anyway, we'll see. All right, Jules. Regardless of the Masters Murray result, I think it's still fair enough to critique the matchmaking rationale. Boxing isn't the sport to be gambling with the welfare of participants. Yeah, no, it's a good point there, Jules. And I know we spoke about it last week, and I was a little bit vocal about the safety of Louis Masters. 2 games for his own good, but he fought a great fight. He really did. Probably said a lot more about Jackson Murray than what I did about Louis Masters. I thought he fought a great fight, really smart fight. He was up for it, and he got inside and did what he had to do, and he dropped Jackson Murray. But yeah, I just think Jackson Murray, he's just one of those guys. I think he just has probably a little bit of a warped perception of his standing in things at the moment, and that's probably why I was surprised he left Jeff Fennick, or Jeff Fennick handballed him off, however whatever story you've heard. But I think he needs to get someone like, if it's not going to be Jeff Fennick, get someone like a Jeff Fennick of that standing around him. I'm not sure who his trainer is. No disrespect to him, I don't know him. He needs someone to tell it the way it is. He's nowhere near it at the moment, Jackson Murray, and he almost come undone against Louis Masters. So him talking about fighting all these, the best heavyweights, not only in Australia but overseas, he's a long way from it, Jackson Murray. So he's got a lot of improvement to do. Maybe this will be the wake-up call by getting put on his ass, and he'll learn from it. But Jackson, you need to understand where you are in the pecking order or the scheme of things, and get back to hands up, chin down, and focus on those skills rather than being out there showboating against someone like a Masters who can get you out of there. So, James, if Tszyu beats Mendoza, do you think Tszyu gets a WBC ranking? No, he won't get a ranking, James, because if you're the champion of one organisation, they won't rank you in another. Especially, I think he's not even in the WBC rankings now, is he? Even though he's only interim champion. So the only way that with the WBC happens there, and I don't think it's going to be for the WBC interim belt, because it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for all that, for sanctioning fees. It's probably money they just waste. No Limit boys probably pay $100,000 in sanctioning fees for an interim belt. Yeah, I don't sort of get that, or 50,000, whatever it is. Anyway, it's money you don't have to spend. But who knows? Maybe because I think by rights, I think I said here as well, they should have. WBC should be sanctioned this as for the real belt. I understand, as I said, just the interim belt. Make it for the real belt. So we've got 2 world title belts on the line at the same time. It just makes sense. But yeah, WBC, who knows what happens with those. But as far as your question there, mate, no. If he beats Mendoza, he won't get a WBC ranking because they don't rank other people's or other organisations' champions. Kyle, do you think the IBF will strip Charlo after the Canelo fight? Apparently they were breathing down his neck harder than the WBO. Who knows, mate? I've given up trying to read what the sanctioning bodies are talking about these days. I really have. We know the WBC with Charlo. We know, I get why the sanctioning bodies have been patient with Jermell Charlo at 154. I get it. the injury and everything else. I understand that, but I applaud the WBO for what they've done. As far as the IBF goes, will they strip him after the fight? I think if he beats Canelo, you'll never see him at 154 anyway, so it defeats the purpose. He'll stay at 168, maybe go back to 160. There's no way he's coming back to 154. And if he is going to fight a Terence Crawford or maybe an Errol Spence or one of these guys, I think they would want to do it at 160. I don't see the sense, because I've just got a feeling if Charlo comes down to 154, who knows, if he fights Crawford or Tim especially, you might see a repeat of the Crawford-Spence fight where his weight drained, and who knows. But all I can say is from going from 154 to 168, nearly 7 kilos, so 6.5 kilos up, it's very, very, very hard to come back. I just don't think he'd be the same fighter. So, but to answer your question there, if he beats Canelo, he won't come back, and if he loses, I would say you might see him go back to 160 and try for a belt there, and maybe go Tszyu to come up to 160 and fight him with a belt on the line there. Who knows? And there's a Rafa in the mix as well. So I hope they're breathing down his neck, Kyle. We need more of it. We need these sanctioning bodies. I've said it on here many times. There should be a blanket rule. No matter what the circumstances, after 12 months, you are the champion recess. You are not necessarily stripped, but the two leading contenders can fight for the vacant belt. You are the champion recess, and when you're ready to go, you get first crack. Or whenever, when you're ready and able, then you're the next one, next cab off the rank. I think that's a pretty easy way to look at things, really. Pretty easy formula. 12 months. No matter what happens, injured, mental health problems, no matter what it is, after 12 months, you become the champion recess or stripped, depending on the circumstances, and we get two fighters fighting for the vacant belt. Jules. This is about Biggs. Dylan Biggs, really impressive for a 21-year-old. Yeah, certainly is, mate. I think he gives Nikita trouble. Brendan Smith got a few good fighters in his stable at the moment. Yeah, well, Brendan Smith's a great trainer, Jules. Look, I think he gives Nikita some troubles. Look, he can obviously punch. Okay, skills. You know that Brendan Smith's going to come up with a really good game plan. And the one caveat I'll put on my opinion, if Nikita comes into the same fight as what he was against Brubaker with the same sort of flaws, then you're right. He might give Nikita a lot of trouble. I've just got a feeling they will be working on Nikita's flaws and trying to improve him all the time. Because as I've said a few times, the fact that he doesn't go outside the shoulders when he throws uppercuts or hooks, that's the problem. And if he does that against Dylan Biggs, well, who knows? Maybe there could be a big right hand coming down the middle. I don't know, but yeah, as I said, I think Nikita wins that fight quite comfortably. But yeah, I would not be surprised if Dylan Biggs gives him a lot of trouble. Will he beat Nikita Tszyu? I really can't see it, but you never know. Asbot says, if Jamel wins and stays at 168, who wins out of him and Benavides? That's a really good question, Asbot. So if Jamel wins at 168, geez, you got me there. I think, size-wise, Jamel, I was just going to say Benavides will be a lot bigger than Jamel at 168. But if you look at Jamel against Canelo, he looks the part already, doesn't he? He looks a lot bigger than Canelo now. I think I might go for. I would go for Charlo if he wins. It depends on how he looks at 168. We haven't seen him fight there yet. If he goes out there and looks all bloated and slow and lethargic, well, obviously Benavides beats him. But if the same Jamel Charlo that fights at 154 can fight at 168, I think he beats Benavides. I'm not a big rap for Benavides. I've said here before. I think he's easy work for Canelo. I really do. And I know I can just feel the daggers coming at me now. I just think Benavides is custom made for Canelo. We'll see about Jamel. I just don't rate Benavides at all. Give him his credit against Caleb Plant. Yep, no dramas. That's all good. I think the other young kid, what's his name? The one they've been touting. I think he beats Benavides. I just think his defence is no good. Stamina questionable. They all rate about his power. I think that's questionable as well. I just think he's a big bully. And I think he falls right into Canelo's, his style. Canelo just waits for him, counter punches him, hooks to the head, hooks to the body, just picks him off. That's my opinion. But we'll see. Big J, I believe IBF is going to strip Charlo to free up the belt for the Murtaliov Kukle fight. Yeah, well, maybe they are, mate. Well, let's hope so. Let's keep the belts active. Let's keep every year there's at least someone fighting for the belt all the time. I mean, look at poor old Tim. I mean, it's nearly a year since that fight with Charlo was first signed, or probably was. Actually, it was about this time last year where it was signed. Still no fight with Charlo. So, I did sort of read somewhere about that, Big J. But let's hope they all free all the belts up and we have people fighting for all of them. Hasbot says, I think Dylan looks good for the first 4 rounds and Nikita breaks him down. Yeah, I think so too, Hasbot. I think he gives a good account of himself, but I just think Nikita is a level above, and I think after 3 or 4 rounds, you'll see Nikita with those really crisp, hard punches that he throws. Just a little bit too much for Dylan Biggs, I think. Is Dan Hill going to come back bigger and better? Yeah, I think so, James. Look, he's a real good game fighter. Look, yeah, actually, I'm going to bring up his record here. So I want to go back. I think, what is he, 4-1. So he obviously lost to Dylan Biggs earlier. It was only a couple of months ago. I think he can come back. I thought he was doing pretty well against Biggs when he got stopped. Thought he was doing really well. And obviously a good gym with Blair Studley up there. So he's beaten Victor Nagby. That's a really, really, really good win for him as well. He can fight, Victor Nagby. He's beaten Sam Solomon and a lot of others. So, I think he can come back. Is he at the elite level, though, James? I don't think so. I think he's a really good, tough, domestic level fighter. No doubt about that. Stepping up internationally is another thing. But, yeah, I think he can come back. He got caught by Dylan Biggs, but, as I said, I thought he was doing really well up to that point. So, I think he can come back for sure. Bill Hack. How are you, Bill? Thanks for joining in, mate. Agree, Barry Michael is 10 times the commentator than the paid art journalist. Look, I know they haven't had the league journalist on there for a while. I can't remember his name for all the pay-per-views. Maybe they gave him the spear as well. But what's his name? Anyway, let me know his name. But I don't like a journalist getting up there and talking like they're some guru of the sport. I don't know. I just think it comes through a lot better from someone like Barry Michael. Does a great job. Maybe he couldn't get there or whatever it is, but geez, I just like Barry Michael or people like this. They've got some, and even Harry Garside does a really good job. Just got to lose the earring, Harry. That's all. James says, let's get Jeff Horn and Harry Garside in the commentary. Yeah, they both do really, really good jobs. They really do. I like both of them as far as commentators goes. But I can't remember who is the journalist, guys. It's sort of weighing on me now, but yeah, I just think he's a bit of a peanut myself. All right, Kyle says, what do we got there? Oh, mate, a Big J, but if Ramos beats Lubin, Ramos wouldn't surpass Kulke and Murtazliev. I can never pronounce the Russian names, and become the number 1 contender. That'll all work itself out there, Kyle. Big J says, I have to agree that Barry Michael or Jeff Horn or any former boxer can give better commentary than some journo who's never thrown a punch in their lives. Would love to hear Glenn Rushton do it. Yeah, that's actually not a bad call as well. Glenn's had his detractors with a few things. I'm actually a fan of Glenn Rushton. I think from a very, very limited boxing background, I think he's done quite well with Jeff Horn, especially. He had a really good stable there for a while. But I think there's a lot of people out there that could get to do it. I don't really like a journalist getting up and, as I said, sort of pretending they know everything that's going on. There's a journalist in the Herald Sun earlier in the year that did the top 20 or something pound for pound fighters, and oh my God, it was just horrendous. Obviously, doesn't follow boxing at all. Probably just looks at the social media and checks some rankings and BoxRec by their system and says that'll do. But who knows? But I think any of those guys, Barry Michael, Jeff Horn, Harry Garside, and like you said there, mate, Glenn Rushton, there's a lot of guys that could get to do it rather than journalists. Paul Kent, that's him. I'm sure he's a good league man, James, but as a boxing commentator, you're talking about stuff you don't know about. Mate, that's the thing. Like, it'd be different if they had Grantley Keezer or someone on there. I used to love watching Grantley Keezer back in the day on Sky Channel. Of course, he was along the whole journey with Jeff Fennick and Jeff Harding and Tszyu and all those guys back in the day, Justin Rousel. But journalist, author, but geez, he knows his boxing, and he was a good commentator. He really was. So someone like that. But Paul Kent, mate, you're a league guy. You probably study league 95% of the week and write about that, and the other 5% you have a quick look online and and you get on there and you're just going. It's very shallow as far as the knowledge of boxing goes, and it just comes across in his commentary. Same as this guy. We just had that one. Big J says Paul Kent was an NRL Juno, but he's been on the shit of late. That's right, he was too. Domestic violence allegations. That's right, I did see that. A lot of people are currently in the shit for that, aren't they? The DV allegations. Yes, I did see that. So of course we can't wait until he's actually proven guilty or innocent. Let's just get him off as quick as we can and forget that he never existed. So. It seems to be the case these days as well. Although they have let Harry back. They've forgiven and forgotten about Harry. He's back on. So maybe it depends on who you are. What's some of the other things we've got there, guys? Still got a few minutes to go. What's that there, Jules? Paul Kent and throwing punches. All right, a couple other things. So Cambosis. No, hang on. I'll get back to George in a sec. James says Bob Sheridan was great. I thought Sean Porter did great for Tszyu versus Harrison. James, Bob Sheridan was the man. I first started watching boxing, in the early 80s, and he was, if you haven't looked at him, guys, if you're from the younger bracket, jump on YouTube, watch all the big, especially the big heavyweight fights from the early to mid, or just recently, isn't it? All of Mike Tyson's fights, but from the early 80s onwards, he was the voice of boxing, pay-per-view boxing, and the way he commentated it was just sending shivers up your spine. I actually got the opportunity to meet him when Horn fought Pacquiao in Australia back in 2017, and he was there at the hotel, and I got to say good day. Really, really nice guy. Didn't shy away from anyone. He was just sitting there and anyone could come up and get a photo and have a chat. And I chewed his ear off for about 30 or 40 minutes about all those great fights. I mean, you're talking Holmes and Tyson and Holyfield and Lewis. I mean, and they're just a few. But, Bob Sheridan was awesome, mate. And not just Bob Sheridan. I really miss the HBO days as well. I think I've said on here before. And Sean Porter, really, really good commentator too, James. I think, and I'm with you, did a really good job for Tszyu Harrison. Totally impartial. I thought he was good. There's some really good commentators out there, but there's also some pretty ordinary ones. And Troy Waters, Dan, yeah, you're right there, mate. The late Troy Waters commentary, yeah, he was really good back in the day too, Troy. And he really knew what he was talking about. And I think that's what you're after with a lot of these commentators. You can probably tell straight away by listening to what they're saying and how they're saying it, whether they know what they're talking about or they don't. Whether they're just a fanboy out there that's taken 5 minutes to have a quick skim of the notes, and that's all they've got, to someone that really knows what they're talking about. And that's what I love about Barry Michael. Obviously a former world champion. Troy Waters was the same. Jeff Fennick was the same. The only criticism I probably have about Jeff, he tends to get a little bit emotive about everything and gets a little bit opinionated about it. I think really people want the commentators to just tell it the way it is and don't get too emotionally involved in the event. And Jeff, because he's a trainer himself as well, so I know he's looking at it through a trainer's eyes, and I get that. But just can get a little bit emotive sometimes, or emotional. Whereas Barry Michael and Troy Waters used to, and the really good commentators, they stay totally impartial, and they just tell it the way it is and the way they see it. And I think that's the definition of a really, really good, whether it be commentator or more so special comments in this instance here. Big J says, if I get the chance to go into interview if I get the chance to go into interview Sean Porter for the channel, T-Street would love to interview him. Yeah, I've seen Sean Porter a few times. I think I've said on here, mate, we actually went to his house, Tszyu and I, last year when we were in Vegas for Canelo and Triple G. And we ran into his dad at the gym. He was just training by himself in the gym next door to where they do the... what's the name of the podcast? One of the biggest boxing podcasts in Vegas. We went there to see them guys. He was training in the gym, got to meet him, invited us to his house, went around there, and it was awesome. He took us for a ride in his $250,000 what are they, Dodge Charger or Challenger, Hellcat or whatever the hell they are. And yeah, two of them, by the way. But Sean Porter, saw him over there a few times, saw him over here in Australia. But I'm with there, matey. And I think if you actually approached him and asked him for an interview, I think he'd interview anyone or get interviewed by anyone, mate. He just seems that type of guy. Yeah, I think he will come back too, by the way, for the Tszyu fight. James Daly says, it's good having an American accent commentating international bouts. Yeah, I'm with you there, James. It almost gives the event a little bit more, I don't know whether you call it relevance or whatever. But, yeah, I'm with you. I like the American accent, in conjunction with good Aussie commentators. We've got some good ones here. And I know Ben Damon cops it a lot, whether you like him or not. I think he does an okay job. I do. I think he, what I like, I think Ben, to me, would be more suited to a bit of a host role and maybe the sidekick role. So if you've got two commentators, maybe it's the lead one. I mean, it'd be good to have a Bob Sheridan. I know he's retired, but someone of that ilk, and Ben Damon beside him riding shotgun, and then you got your special comments, whether it be Jeff or Barry or one of these types of guys beside them. But I tend to think Ben is really suited to the host role of hosting the event, and maybe they just haven't got anyone to do the commentary, which is why they get Ben to do it. Not to say he can't do it; he's done a few of my shows and more than capable. But for those big events, as I said, I think Ben will be better as the host, and then bring in the really elite, world class commentators. And do we really need Australians? Like, we're talking the main event telecast here. I know the Americans, they'll bring in Showtime. I know they did it with George, and I think they did it with Tim as well. They'll bring in the Showtime commentators. Do we really need Australian commentators for the Australian portion of the telecast? Do we? I don't know. I'm not sure we do. Do we just bring in the Showtime commentators and work in conjunction? Do we have Ben Damon and Barry Michael, as an example, working in conjunction with the Showtime guys, and they come out? I don't know how it all works. I'm just sort of spitballing, but yeah. Do we really need to have Aussies with an Australian telecast? I don't think so. All right. A great MC. Yeah, well, that probably highlights my point a bit there, James. Ben's a great MC, a good host. I've seen him do so many really good jobs on whether it's hosting the weigh-in or the pre-show or you name it. He's good in a lot of areas. As I said, I really like him as the host of the telecast / MC, and then bring in other people for the commentary. Because the thing is with Ben, it's not his fault. He's never really been prior to this, he's never obviously been involved in the fight game. He's probably done some other commentary, but probably hasn't had the work experience, I suppose, maybe overseas doing it with, the more experienced boxing telecast. So it's probably just when the main event thing, and it blew up really quick with Tszyu and everything else. We had it with Jeff Horn. He's sort of been thrust in there, I think, a little bit of being the best of the bunch. And as I said, I'm not of the camp that criticises Ben. I think he does a great job, but yeah, I think they could maybe, with the amount of money they're spending and they're bringing in, that they could afford to get the best of the best. I hope you're not watching, Ben. I love your work. James agrees. Yes, give us the Showtime coverage. Yeah, I think we'll save a few bucks, I suppose. What have we got there? North London. All right, I've got to be careful with old North London here. USA boxing commentators start crying when talking about the heavyweight division. All they got is Wilder, and he is ducking machine. Big J says to that. The Yanks cry about the heavyweight division as they haven't had a decent champ since Holyfield. Yeah, well, it's a good point, Big J. The Poms, who didn't have a heavyweight champion for so long, did they? Years and years and years. I remember that was all about Frank Bruno being the big hope, and then Lennox Lewis come in. But I know a lot of English people didn't really accept Lennox Lewis because he was born and raised in Canada. So, and he fought for Canada at the Olympics, and he just moved to England. So there was a little bit of this going on about, is he really an authentic Englishman or an English heavyweight champion? But of course, since then we've had Joshua Fury. So yeah, but I'm just trying to think. Yeah, you're probably right there, Big Joe. They probably haven't had a decent heavyweight. I don't count Wilder. I think he's the most, careful not to upset Wilder fans. I think he's the most overrated champion in heavyweight history. In heavyweight history, my opinion only. But anyway, North London says UK would have all the heavyweight belts if it wasn't for Usyk. He's a low blow king. Yeah. No one likes Usyk winning against AJ and ducking Fury. Well, I don't think he's ducking Fury, is he, North London? I think Fury's the one that can't agree. I think if Usyk got a half decent payday, which I think he's been offered, I think Usyk could take that fight in 2 seconds. I think your man Tyson Fury is the one that's intent on fighting the MMA fighters out there. Usyk's been waiting in the wings for ages, and I think, regardless of what you thought of the Dubois fight, I think Fury is the one that's holding that fight up. Because I just don't. I think that Fury is just being totally unrealistic as far as his purse requirements. I think he's just pricing himself out. I think he actually has a bit of fun with it all, to be honest. He likes the promoters to know that he's the man, he's in charge. And I think he almost uses them as his play toys sometimes. How much can he upset him? How much can he stuff him around? How much, can he get out of him? I think he just takes the piss sometimes and just sees how far he can push it. So, in my opinion, he's the one that's holding up the big fights, is Tyson Fury. Fury's fought Usyk. He wants to fight Wilder. Usyk's out there. Tyson Fury, to me, is the one that's totally holding things up at the moment. Big J says, no worries, mate. I'll have a crack at the commentary. I have the home viewers is bleeding in 10 minutes. Yeah, look, I'm not saying it's easy too, Big J. It will be bloody hard, especially when you've got a mammoth audience. I'm not sure I could do it. And as I said before, I think Ben Damon does a pretty good job. It'll be a high pressure job. It's live most of the it is live all the time. It'd be not much fun at all, I don't think, to do it, mate. But I think But all I'm saying is that the amount of money that goes into it and comes out of it too is generated. I just think we could just tweak a few things where our commentary goes. And look, what I will say too. The DAZNs of the world are hopeless. I hate their commentary. I think they're all second-rate commentators, second-rate coverage. I mean, I love Sean Porter with Showtime and the whole commentary. I love all that. I think they do a great job. It's probably the closest to HBO that we've seen. But, DAZN no good. Main event, just okay. But do we just want Showtime instead? But Big J, if you want to have a crack at it, bring it on. A couple of things before we go, guys. Got a couple of minutes to go. So George Kambosos and Vasily Lomachenko looking for like January, February in Australia. So that should be massive. Gustavo Lemos has been thrown out of the rankings. He's out with his weight issues. So I think it's worked out very, very well. George Kambosos, Vasily Lomachenko. Probably I would still put my money on Melbourne. I spoke with Noonan Boy the other day. As usual, wouldn't give me anything when it comes to the George Kambosos situation. I know he knows what's going on, but didn't get. Look, I didn't really push him because I know it's all in confidence. But it has sort of been mentioned, and he didn't deny or confirm, by the way, that Kambosos Lomachenko will be January, February in Australia for the IBF lightweight title. So so big news for Australian boxing on top of. Looks like November in Melbourne for Jason Maloney as well. I've got a feeling you've got so many big fights. They might maybe, especially if George is going to be in Melbourne, they might take Jason out of there and maybe put him on the Gold Coast. Big money up there as well being thrown around. Jai Pataya as well. Of course, he's fighting overseas. But what a few months for Aussie boxing. Tszyu, Jason Maloney, Jai Pataya, and George Kambosos. And then who knows what's going to happen with Liam Wilson. Who knows what's going to happen with Sam Goodman. We've got the girls doing well, Ebony Bridges. We've got Skye Nicholson. We don't know what's happening with Shanika Johnson. So many great fighters out there at the moment that it's just too hard to keep up with them half the time. What's that there, mate? Josh Graham on DAZN is a former WWE commentator. Yeah, I didn't know that, mate, but no good. The whole DAZN thing's no good. I ended up getting it. I think I got a yearly subscription. It only turned out working out like $60 or $70 for the year, so I got it. There are some sort of bigger fights coming up on it, so I did get it. But at one stage, it was $15 a month or something like that. There's no way it's worth that, I don't think. At the start, it was okay. And I know everything costs money, but when the content doesn't back it up, I don't get it. So for me, DAZN's been a major disappointment. Guys, I think that is about a wrap for this week's show. I know we've got a couple of minutes to go, but I might just take the moment. I'm starting to lose the voice a bit there. BJ, I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to wash my concrete down with my water in a sec, or my cordial, and go lie on the couch and feel sorry for myself for the rest of the night. and then back up for next week, mate. But again, really appreciate everyone tuning in. If you haven't seen the weekly roundup, make sure you check it out. It's on YouTube at the moment. It comes out every Friday afternoon, so get that. I've had a bit on the last few weeks, but we will start to see a lot more content coming through with the Watch Your Verdict and a few other one-off sort of specials that I'm going to start bringing out. Still unsure what's happening with Tszyu and everyone else. Everyone's got so much on, but I'll still keep the content out. And worst case, I'll be with you guys every Monday night at 7 o'clock here for the for Talking Boxing on the Deep Dive channel. So until then, really appreciate everyone that likes, shares, subscribes, and watches all our videos. It's very much appreciated to get our likes and all that up. So until next week, guys, have a good week, and we'll see you then.